chat function today to ask any questions. If you have anything for the panelists, love to hear from you. Anything about Inspire Care 360 and the support solutions that we offer owners of childcare programs, you can directly ask me in our chat function, and I can get you answers, and we can follow up off of outside of the webinar. And I would love to meet with you and chat with you a little bit. So if this is your first time joining us for one of our webinars at Inspire Care 360, Tony D'Agostino is our CEO, and he is the one that will be hosting this webinar and interviewing our guest speakers and interviewing them and introducing them, I'm sorry. And he will be on just shortly. In the meanwhile, please introduce yourself in the chat function if you have any questions. It'd be great to hear from you.
Hey, Julie.
Hi, Mr. Tony.
How are you? Well, thank you so much for emceeing here and getting us welcomed in. I do appreciate that greatly, and I appreciate everybody coming on board and being here today for our presentation, one of our pop-up executive webinar series, which is Cyber Threats in the ECE, Not If, But When. And we are going to continue to have a few more people who come on board. But Julie, for right now, thank you so much. I know you're going to be in the background with your video off, but I know people could reach out to you through the chat function. So thanks so much. And I'm going to get us kicked off. So with that said, everybody, welcome to today's pop-up executive webinar series. This is being recorded, and this will be available for replay. And I would highly recommend that if you do have an opportunity to have a replay, this will be a great opportunity to share this also with your staff. Beyond just the owner and administration who might see value in this, I think there's an awful lot of opportunity for your whole staff to take advantage of this program today and this programming. I am going to go ahead and introduce you to Steve in a few minutes, and let's go ahead and move forward with doing a little bit of our housekeeping. So with our agenda, we are going through our welcome, and we're going to talk about a few housekeeping things, which you'll see some of those topics here, as well as our next webinar, introducing Steve again and getting into the meat of it all. With that said, we will try to do question and answers at the end and leave a little bit of time. But for any reason, if you do have questions and you want to get them across, just chat it up with Julie, and Julie will try to bring that to our attention in the middle of the presentation. And so the first part of our series is we're talking about our housekeeping, I should say, is our administration, leadership, and development programs. This is really an important program that we are currently in I think the second or third week, probably the third week of our current class of certified leadership development for administrators and owners. This is a fantastic program. It really helps move people from a management style to a leadership style within the ECE world. It is really focused on getting your staff to work closer as a team and have accountability as well as empowerment. It's also really focused on how do you work with your leaders and how do you have leaders really look at solving problems within your schools. As to them trying to have to solve all the issues themselves, they are working with their teams, they're coaching their teams, they're having the teams help solve the problem. So that would be your teachers, that could be your cooks, could be anybody who works within the organization. And it really is building a coaching culture. So what does a coaching culture mean? A coaching culture is less about telling and more about grooming your team to really think through the problems and have them look to solve the issues instead of you telling them how to solve it. It really helps you develop a much better culture in your organization. And in doing that, it oftentimes reduces turnover greatly because your staff feels like they're part of the school, that they truly belong. And that's a really important piece of it. It is also something too, that if you have more of a coaching culture, it really is focused on how you can recruit more staff into a welcoming culture and environment. It really creates a great place to work. We've been doing it for years within my schools, and I'm elated with the kind of reduction we've had in turnover, as well as the kind of engagement we have from our staff members. And again, this is really about you working on your business as an owner operator as to working in your business, because you're looking at your staff solving issues that they have to deal with as to you having to solve everything. So with that said, let's move forward, and we're going to talk about healthcare for ECE. If you've been on this before, you've heard a little bit about it, but Healthy Advantage is a program over the past couple of years that we developed, and we've now rolled it out for about a year and a half. We probably have 60 to 70 of our members who use Healthy Advantage and take advantage of it for their staff, for themselves, possibly in situations. What's really important to recognize about Healthy Advantage is sort of like a deconstructed healthcare program. It is not major medical program. In other words, you don't have a super high premium, very large deductible, and all the caveats that come with one of those large major medical programs. It's sort of a deconstructed, so you get what you want and what you're seeking. So it's very affordable for staff right from $1. Their premiums can be as low as $11.50 per paycheck, could be higher, around $30 per paycheck, or up to $90 for their entire family, but nowhere's near the cost of what it takes for a major medical program. Owners have a very level set premium for their owner operators. It's very inexpensive for the first 10, and then it even drops in half beyond the inexpensive amount for premiums for the first 10 employees you would have on board. Super flexible. There's a lot of program options, and it doesn't matter for the owner operator. Your costs do not increase because your employee chooses more programs. That is something that they can do, but they get to take advantage of things such as $15 office visits, $15 specialist visits, going to urgent care very inexpensively compared to what it would cost even under a major medical program. Also, it includes a full telemedicine program. You have medications and everything covered within. So it's a very compelling program if you're interested in learning more about it. One of the other really just killer elements about this program is the fact that it comes with your own benefit administration team. What does that mean? So when you have an open enrollment, which we would work with you to set up, we actually come in with our team and we work with your team to educate them, let them understand what is major medical programs, what is Healthy Advantage, what are voluntary programs, and give them in a complete lay of the land so they can make the very best decisions for them. And these programs can work in conjunction with major medical and other voluntary programs. They're also a program that meets in compliant with the Affordable Care Act. So Part A of the Affordable Care Act is the expensive one, but that is one that it definitely meets. Part B of the Affordable Care Act is no matter what size a company you are, if someone goes to the state exchange, you could pay a penalty, but we still haven't seen anything like that as of yet. So it does need about a month and a half from the time you say, yes, we're interested in moving forward with this. It does take about a month and a half to that time to actually roll it out. So that is Healthy Advantage. It is available. If you have an interest in it, please reach out to Julie in the chat and we'll get you hooked up to learn more about it. So what's going on next? Well, actually, it is something that I will be presenting. This is the first time for one of our pop-up executive webinar series that I will actually be not only the host, but actually the presenter too. And, why not? We've heard a lot of people who've really been struggling with staff retention and staff recruiting. And it is an area of specialty for us. And over 35 years of my background and experience has been in the recruitment and retention of staff. I've worked with recruitment firms. I've owned and operated recruiting and staffing firms and job boards, as well as worked in the HR and talent management and the talent development world for the majority of my career before I even got involved with my own schools in childcare and eventually with Inspire Care 360. So on April 13th, we are going to be talking about how to slow the revolving door of ECE staff turnover. We're huge believers that what it takes to stabilize your workforce needs to be looked at not just on how many people you recruit and how fast you can recruit, but the bigger issue is how do you truly retain your good staff? What do you have to have in place? What do you need to do to retain great staff? And that will be the myopic focus of this event. So we look forward to joining you. You will see coming across in the chat before the end of this a link to a registration for it. And we look forward to having you join us for that event. So whether you are reading this on replay or you are seeing this live and replay, there will probably be an email that comes with this and also a link with that. So you have an opportunity to click in, register at that time. With that said, let's go ahead and look to bring Steve on board. Steve, with the last name like DiAugustino, I'm going to try not to butcher your last name, but let me give it a shot. Stasiukonis.
You're almost there. It's Stasiukonis, but it's okay. I'm used to it.
Stasiukonis.
Yeah, we're all good. Okay.
Well, good Greek guy. There we
Lithuanian actually.
Lithuanian. Very
yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, hey, thank you for joining.
I appreciate being here. Thank you.
How are you doing today?
We're doing good. Excited about talking about this, and I think you guys will find this really exciting, interesting stuff. Obviously, based on the geopolitical issues, I think you're going to find this very timely.
Awesome. And I'm looking forward personally myself. Steve is the CEO of Secure Network Technologies. He's been in IT, as you can see on the screen here, for over 25 years, really focused on that edge of cybersecurity, cyber threats, digital intelligence, social engineering methodologies, and really a lot of different things where he's been consulting to the industry. He's been consulting for companies. And Steve, before we get started, why don't you just tell us a little bit about Secure Network Technology, sort of what's your go-to market? What is it you do?
So we're essentially hired hackers. We've been stealing for 25 years. So in the beginning, people asked us, they said they want to know how vulnerable they are before they actually get hacked. And for 25, since the internet, people have been concerned about it. So if you want us to hack into your network and steal, we're your guys. If you want us to break in over your wireless, over your phone lines, we have a theater. We actually will break into a building. We'll pose as FedEx, AT&T, Verizon. We'll actually rob a bank. We'll break into a building. It's very much like, I guess, if you've seen the movie Ocean's 11, it's very much like that. We've actually shipped a man in a box to get into a building. We pose as a variety of characters. Then we're in the building, we just plug into the network and we walk past the firewall. But that's predominantly what we do. That's our bread and butter. But the other part of the business that happens, and Tony, this is why this is really important to talk about, is that when somebody gets actually hacked and broken into, we respond and we'll show you how they got in, and we kick out the threat actor, and then obviously try to help that company or that individual or business to really get back on their feet. It's happening every day. It happens, and who knows how much and what magnitude, because usually nobody reports it. You hear about a fraction of what happens in the world. You'll hear about the big ones, the Colonial Pipes, the Sonys. You'll hear about those. You'll never hear about the small to mid-sized businesses, but it happens too often.
Well, and I'm going to stop sharing here so you can start pulling up your screen. And while I do that,
sure.
I'm going to say, interestingly enough, this morning from another owner who's in Virginia, I know him rather well. He sent me an email this morning, and he has his own schools, came from his academy. And it was an email that had what said was an RFP as part of it. And I was like, okay, I didn't expect this from Tom, but I got this RFP from him. So what I did is I responded to him immediately and said, hey, Tom, I got this unsolicited document from you. Did you happen to send this to me? Because I didn't want to open it up and have my system, vulnerable to what could be a phishing attempt or something else. Well, I immediately responded. And what was really interesting is he immediately responded back and said, hey, this is a legit document. I really appreciate it. Sorry for the short notice. If you could take a look at it and give me my thoughts. And I was like, that just was uncomfortably quick. And then I looked and it said auto response. So what I immediately started going was, you know what? This is someone who just has hacked his email altogether and even changed over his auto response. to do a quick auto response because he knows that people are now doing that. It's starting to get sophisticated, and we're talking about childcare here. So before you jumping into the presentation, you were just starting to talk about small and medium-sized businesses. Does this really even apply to childcare schools?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, threat actors don't care. Wherever there's money to be made, there's an opportunity, and they don't care. They won't discriminate. And the assumption is that you're going to have insurance and somebody else will pay, and they'll turn up the heat, make things as painful as they can. But you got to remember too, there's a threat actor, aka hacker, out there for everybody. So if he can score $3,000 from your business, your little institution, they'll do it because that may be a huge amount of money in his world. So there is a threat actor out there that will take it. They will work for $300, $30 to $3 million. They don't care.
Right. All right. Well, hey, the show's on. You have the comm from here.
All right, cool. So we went through we all know the title and a little bit about who we are, professional hackers. And the one thing about doing security incidents and responding to somebody who's been hacked is that's the best education you could do for what we do because you learn from the threat actor. You can't go to a university or a boot camp or some sort of program to learn how a true nation state threat actor hacks a company. We see it day and night, and it occurs too often, but to understand that really made us better testers. Now, about this session, I'm going to show you who the hackers are. I want you to understand that. I want to talk about some hacking techniques that they're going to use against you to trick you to do something that's going to obviously give them a foot in the door or to do something illicit or nefarious. I'll show you the various ways they steal. Now, the other ways they steal is considered social engineering techniques. And that's the aspect of people, process, and technology. And it's really kind of a sly way of getting you to do something to once again fall victim. And then last but not least, I'm going to show you how to protect yourself. So the presentation, the training program here is really designed not just for you as business owners and for the people that work at your company, but it's you as individuals. Take the information you're going to use here and you share it with your loved ones. You share it with your family because there is a threat actor, once again, a hacker that's out there that will do whatever they can do to take advantage of you. And the principles you're about to see here, once again, apply across all different things. And I want you to, once again, try to leverage this in your personal life as well as business. First question I get, somebody gets hacked, they want to know who are the hackers. Well, the hackers, once again, they're not these people, okay? The guy like, from Swordfish and, Sandra Bullock from The Net or Chris Helmsworth from Black Hat. Remember that movie with Kevin Smith or Bruce Willis and the Apple guy? They're nothing like these people. The stuff that you see in TV and the movies, forget about it. Erase it from your brain because that's not what you're dealing with. Threat actors are also known as hackers, or also known as the advanced persistent threat. And they're broken down into three groups. This was the APT, or advanced persistent threat, is what was coined by our government, the National Security Agency. And they look at these groups from a standpoint of who they come from and where they are. So foreign nationals and nation states, countries like Russia and China will take an individual literally out of middle school, high school, they'll groom them, they'll educate them, they will turn them into cyber warfare machines. All they do is they hack and they become lethal weapons. And the advantages is that they, number one, they're very IT literate, they're incredibly smart, but the other thing too is they speak English. They speak their native language plus that. So they have an advantage over us. That's the number one group that attacks our country. The second group, hacktivisted anarchists. If you guys have heard of LulzSec or Anonymous or Cult of the Dead Cow, but even QAnon is considered a hacktivist group. And these are the ones that will actually become judge, jury, and executioner. And then what they do is they hack on behalf of whatever cause they have. In fact, Anonymous now is hacking Russia. I don't know if that's a good idea. These guys don't care. They'll just take anybody down, go after somebody, but they potentially could start a major war. So that's a big issue. Now, the third group here, this is the one that's going to attack us as well as your individual person, as well as your business, organized cyber criminals. And here's kind of the methodology that happened here. You're a nation state hacker. You just got let go because you're being replaced or you're just moving on to a different world. And you decide that, well, I've been hacking all my life for a government. How do I make money on my own? Well, you're going to steal, and they're going to do it over the internet. And cyber criminals like REvil, Clop, DarkSide, Hive, there's a whole bunch of them. That's what they do. And that's what you're hearing about mostly when it comes to businesses and individuals, as well as companies getting compromised. That's the groups that are doing it. They're incredibly clever. They're really sophisticated and smart. And that's why this presentation is something you really got to pay attention to, because you don't want to be victimized. Now, why can't we catch them? That's another question I always get. And people say, why don't we send the FBI over there and just kick a door in? Well, I'll tell you why. Because they live in countries with no extradition. And in fact, across the globe, there's 71 countries that just will not play nice with the US. And they'll say, listen, we'll harbor anybody that does this because they're bringing revenue into our country. So, if you're willing to become a threat actor or hacker that wants to hack and make money, you can live in Uzbekistan or Morocco or Bahrain or Samoa, and nobody will touch you. And you could do whatever you want, because as you're successful in making money, you're just then going to cash out in that country and you're bringing dollars in. So they're going to appreciate that and they're not going to touch you. Now, how do they steal? Okay, there's a lot of ways hackers steal, and I'm going to show you there's a variety of crimes out there. And the number one crimes that we see, and this is kind of a low level crime, financial scams, identity benefit theft, the things that are going to attack you in a certain way that are really very low profit for them, but actually, I shouldn't say low profit, low margin for them. They're going to make money on anybody. And once again, but these are typically script kiddie hacks. They're not very sophisticated. These are the ones like the Nigerian schemes. They'll say that you're related to a prince. You just won some lottery tickets. Or they're going to take your identity and leverage that to get credit cards or to, some sort of, once again, payday loan or whatever. The other type of scams they have are extortion and blackmail. This is also known as sextortion. And how this typically happens, and it's a low-level hack, is when all of a sudden, if you've been using the same password over and over and over again, and finally one of the places that you've used it at gets compromised, that threat actor is going to get access to your username and your password. And then what they're going to do is they're going to email you and say that they've seen your web page, or you've gone to a site, or they've got access to your camera on your computer. And then they're going to want you to pay them, because they're going to blackmail you and say that they're going to out you to everybody on, let's say, Facebook or LinkedIn, or share this with, a list of people that you know. So that's another low-level crime. The other one, intellectual property and data theft. This is on the rise. As a result of companies getting compromised, threat actors are stealing that data and then selling them off to other companies and businesses in competing countries, and they're making money on that. Ransoming, encrypting your data, and exfiltrating your data. This is the stuff that you're reading about, hearing about on the news all the time. This is like the big money maker, along with this one, which is redirection of funds. And redirection of funds is painful, because this happens to individuals and businesses, and when they score on this, when they make money, usually the take is fairly large. And I'll explain redirection of funds, because it's very important you understand something to do to protect yourself on that. SCADA systems, security infrastructure hacks. These are things that are happening within, the things that provide water and provide, natural gas or electricity. Hackers are doing that as well. That's a sophisticated hack. We're not going to get into that. But once again, it affects all of us. That's where a threat actor, like a nation state threat actor, brings down a portion of the grid. And now we're all struggling because we don't have power. Those are very real and very concerning. And once again, not part of this particular presentation, but I want you to be aware of it. All right.
One of the things before you get started, just, I fully admit, I got a call probably about 5 years ago, and this was sort of on the forefront of it. I never thought this would happen, is that the power company where I was at, it was Rochester Gas and Electric, it was RG&E, had called me directly and said, listen, we haven't received your payment for the past 2 months, and unfortunately we have to shut down your service at one of your schools, childcare schools. We are bringing, and a truck is being dispatched right now to shut off the power, but you have a bill that's due for $513 and so cents, and the only way to pay for it is you have to pay us right away, and it has to get wired to us. Well, right now I just hear it and I'm like, well, that sounds scam all over it. Back then it didn't. It sounded very, very real. And it is obviously a very common thing. And I went up right to the pulpit of about to send it. I'm like, this just doesn't sound right. And then I talked to someone actually with RG&E, even though they gave me a callback number, which they answered the phone, RG&E. I called the general number and I asked them about it. They said, no, you're actually in good standing. But I was literally sitting in front of a machine in CVS ready to pay them. So I got that close. But anyhow, that's a lot of these things are just creativity. You hear it now and it sounds crazy, but when it first comes up, you have no idea.
Oh yeah. And you got to remember this, the threat actors today, and I call them threat actors because we're not calling them hackers anymore. Hackers are individuals that do something to take advantage of a certain technology for their benefit as well, not just breaking it or doing something wrong. So the term threat actor is really becoming the mainstream term for anybody that's in this world of cybercrime. So it's unfortunate. You know, Tony, what happened to you is you're looking at something that they're becoming very attentive to detail. They've gone through enough mail, you know, they've rattled through enough inboxes to see stuff like that. And now they use that as a very, you know, once again, a very pinpointed vector to attack individuals, perhaps in your region with Rochester, New York, or, you know, they'll learn a region and they'll just focus on those individuals. And it's lucrative. $500, once again, it's a good score. For an individual that lives in a country, a third world, that's a lot of money. So
Yes. And I feel
that's
bad
it.
for my parents and, you know, grandparents and that out there who are a little more trusting these days. So that is also harsh too, but let's keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing, why malware is so dangerous, and really one of the true tools of the threat actor is malware. And I'm going to explain to you why it's so important to protect your systems with antivirus and really updating it and maintaining it. But the key behind malware, there's something it's known, it's called known versus 0-day. So a known malware variant is something that's been established. All the antivirus companies know about it. It gets discovered. It's shared amongst the antivirus and security community. And a good example here is the internet's in the cloud. The person on the right is you on your computer, but the magnifying glass is your antivirus. And what that does, it inspects everything coming across your machine and it looks at it and it compares it. And it says, hey, I know what that is. And it might see it as some sort of nefarious, you know, piece of code. And it says, that's SQL Slammer. That's bad. And what it does is it blocks it, it quarantines it, it removes it from your machine. And now you're good to go. It's protected you. But here's the problem. See, threat actors now can crank out malware like Doritos. I mean, they really could just keep making it as much as they want. They can create new variants, and they're called 0-day because they're not known yet. So what happens is that you'll be on your machine, and if you haven't updated your antivirus, or it's an old version, or it's not sophisticated, or if it's the free version doesn't give you all the protections, it doesn't know what it is. And then your machine gets infected, and at that point, now you have a problem. Now here's the deal. When your computer's infected, your computer isn't your computer anymore. If the threat actor actually deploys a piece of malware, we can remote control it. Yes, the computer's in your office, it's in your home, you own the actual hardware, but the internal workings of everything now belong to him. Yes, you're behind the keys and things are going to be, you know, run from where you're sitting, but truly everything you're doing is now visible to our threat actor. And that's where some huge financial things happen. And that's where identity theft occurs, not to mention a bunch of other illicit behavior. So it's really important that you understand that you got to buy antivirus and you got to do it across all your machines. And then you got to update it, and don't get the free version, because the free version is worth every penny. It just doesn't do it. And the threat actors actually know the limitations to a variety of different antivirus. You know what? You've really got to spend some money there and make the leap forward, because once again, you're playing chess against a master chess player.
Hey, Steve.
Now, yes, sir.
Regarding some of the antivirus stuff, you know, a lot of times we've invested in the past in some of the antivirus stuff, and it almost seems like it comes with so much bloatware or so many other things that it's almost like a virus itself, candidly. You know, do you just have any, you know, practical thoughts when it comes to acquiring antivirus? And even if there's like free ones online, like Avast or whatever, or paying for upgrades with that, or are there like go-tos that are cleaner than others that you would recommend?
This is what you want to look for. You want to look for a software vendor that makes antivirus that's considered next generation. They also call it next gen. And what that means is it doesn't just compare things that it sees already. It'll look for the heuristics, and it looks at behaviors that are occurring on your computer that are tied to those pieces of malware. And they're a little bit more money. You're going to pay probably, you know, between $50 to $100 per seat. But you know what? It's worth it. It really is, because it does so much more. And I know what you're saying about the stuff that you're getting when you see the bloatware and all the other bells and whistles. You know what? Go to the websites that supply these products and look for next generation. You know, see the services that are part of what they're offering in terms of that product. And then once again, make a decision by talking to perhaps somebody that's in this industry that can give you some good recommendations on what you need to have. I will tell you, the best thing to have, especially for a small business, is have a partner, have a company that you rely on that can help you with IT. Because once again, you want to rely on somebody who's got that next level of knowledge. You really need it.
Great.
Definitely. But the other question that comes up is, how is it deployed? And everybody thinks it's emailed as an attachment. You can now email attachments that are anything. It could be a PDF file, a Word file, a spreadsheet, a WAV file. It doesn't matter. They can turn malware. They can embed malware into everything. So you really have to have a program that looks at that. Embedded links, embedded macros. So what an embedded macro is, it's inside of a Word file, a spreadsheet. You open it up, and next thing you know, there's something that runs in the spreadsheet. Website drive-by downloads. Here's what happens is, some people will put up a web page. They don't understand the significance of security. And then a threat actor sees that their web page is vulnerable. And what they do is they commandeer it. They load it up with some sort of malware. So when people visit it and they want to download, let's say, a form, or they think that it's going to be some other, document that they can look at, now you're actually creating a problem for somebody else. So you can go to a website, think that it's a benign PDF file. Next thing you know, you've downloaded something and it's a command and control piece of malware, and you've just compromised your own system. That's once again why a better product for AV is it's very important. Deployed within social networking. People think, well, geez, I'm in the Facebook environment, somebody's protecting me, or you're using LinkedIn. Doesn't work that way. So when you're using Facebook Messenger and you're receiving a link or something that's coming across from somebody else, it doesn't necessarily mean it's protected. In fact, if you click on that link could bring you to another site outside of Facebook, and now you're potentially at risk, because once again, if that place is nefarious and there's some sort of piece of malware that then dumps itself down to your computer, now you've got a problem in that machine. So it's really important. A lot of the better antivirus solutions, next-gen solutions, will protect you in this way as well. Embedded in hardware devices. Passing thumb drives, SD cards, all sorts of different medias that'll move digital files. You got to be careful. And when you pick them up and you find them and plug them in, if you're not prepared for having something that could be, infectious on that drive, you could poison your machine. So a lot of times when things get put in their machine, a good next-gen antivirus will look at what's on there, scan it, and then determine whether or not this thing is considered benign or malicious. Once again, the best thing to do is, hand it off to somebody else perhaps and have them look at it in let's say a throwaway computer, or once again, wait to talk to somebody who's an expert and just pass it on to them to make sure that there's nothing harmful on it. Make sure the source is trusted as well if you're getting it at a trade show or whatever. Social engineering. So getting back to how you can deploy malware, you can actually then call somebody up. You can then initiate some sort of communication. This can happen over a phone. It can happen over a chat session, and then you're actually now you're getting that person to do something. You may think you're having help from Microsoft, and they call you and they say, well, geez, we see a problem. Would you download this file so we can remote into your computer to help you? That's another way to deploy malware as well. Vulnerable systems. Vulnerable systems means that your operating system on your computer, whether it's Windows or Apple, has to be updated. And now when malware sees a system that hasn't been updated, it knows that it can take advantage of it. I can't stress it enough. You got to update your computer. Microsoft, Apple, it doesn't matter. The reason the operating system is being updated by the manufacturer is because they're fixing typically a security flaw inside of it. Doesn't matter. Your phone, update it. Your Android device, you have to update it. They're not giving you a new version of Solitaire. They're repairing a problem. So it's really up to you to fix that. All right. Who do they target? This is who they target. They target everyone. They don't care. Large corporations, small, medium-sized businesses, individuals, consumers. Don't think because you're a small business and that you're in the business of childcare or education that you're exempt. They don't care. They don't care if you're an elderly couple, a college kid, a 14-year-old. They don't care. If you're behind a machine and there's an opportunity to steal from you, commandeer the system for some other nefarious task, they're going to do it. Never make the assumption that you're a nobody. You're always something important to a threat actor. You always are.
Well, in a way,
Now,
Steve, it seems like that if, those who be less sophisticated, which might be small, medium businesses, individuals who are not like standing up a big defense like a corporation, are easier targets.
oh yeah, they're incredibly soft. It's typically you'll see companies and small to mid-sized businesses always get hit. And it really hurts badly because a lot of times those folks don't have cyber insurance. They don't have the protections in place, or they don't have the resources to recover.
Right.
So getting hacked is super painful. Just gonna tell you flat out. So what do you need to do to protect yourself? Yeah, I can tell you a lot of other stuff, but I'll tell you right now, this is probably the best words of advice right here. Watch current events. I'm telling you right now, threat actors are the most opportunistic individuals going. And as you watch the news, and I don't care if you're on the left, the right, someplace in between, really watch things that are happening that are current events. We saw it in COVID. When the pandemic came out, anything COVID related became a scam. And we've learned from that because what happens is it's a societal vulnerability. And as things happen across the globe and it touches all of us in a certain way, you're going to see a scam that comes out of that. So, when COVID hit, people were worried about SBA loans or some way of, getting a stimulus package. Threat actors created probably millions upon millions of emails, sent them out to trick people to click on stuff, open files up, go to web pages to do things. It was just, that was the new norm. And now they've learned it really works. So when you see something coming up about Ukraine, or it's some sort of portal to give a donation, or you get a file to get a statistic on something, or perhaps now even gas prices, you really have to look at it closely and determine that this is nefarious or not. So really, you got to be on guard. And to do that, think of the simple hacks that are out there, how they're going to take advantage of you. And the ones that they're going to use against you is called phishing, vishing, smishing, and really getting you to click on something. I have a team of professional hackers at work here, and they'll tell me all day long, listen, Steve, hacking a firewall, it's not what you see on the movies. It's not some guy pounding the keys and then going, I'm in. And then all of a sudden he's like hands up and, he's moving through some network. Doesn't happen. It's really going to make a phishing email, a way of contacting you, and then getting the user inside that network to give him that foothold in there. So how do you combat it? Attention to detail. You got to read the fine print. And when I mean read the fine print, you got to start slowing down and looking at things closely. And I'm not saying to be completely unproductive, but when you're at work or you're at home and you're moving through emails, and somebody says, do this or right away do that. Tony, what saved your bacon with the utility bill is that you probably sat down and looked at it and then you said to yourself, that was, it's something about that didn't look right. And then before you sent the money, something triggered that. I'm sure you've read that email a couple times. Mm-hmm. And calling them was also helpful. But really slowing down before you do something can really help, and it's beneficial.
Well, and what they're doing, Steve, is they didn't want me to slow down. They wanted me to make a rapid decision very quick. The truck's on its way. You got to do this. Power's going to be shut off. You got a childcare school there with kids in it. It's going to be shut down. So I'm getting me into mode of I've got to take care of those kids. So it works on my emotion too.
You know what though? If you think about what they're saying, the truck is on its way and they're a utility company and they're going to do this immediately. I'm going to tell you right now, that to me is a red flag. I've dealt with utility companies. I've had power that I needed, supplied to a property I'm having built or whatever. I've never seen those guys work fast. So you know what? If you and I don't care, tell you, I don't care what city you're in this country. Good luck on that one. Okay. So that's the truth. But when I mean attention to detail, like an evil twin website. All right, here's a good example of one. I want you to look at this closely. There's a law firm called Littler. They're a labor law firm, huge firm, 3,000 lawyers. This is the actual landing page they have. Okay, so you would go there as an attorney. You've got littler.com. You've got, once again, that's their HTTPS with their little logo. You got the little lock next to it. Their logo's in green on the upper left-hand corner. This is legit. This is the site you would go to. But what a threat actor can do, and we found this on the internet, is they can buy a very similar domain to littler.com. A simpler name or a website address is what we're talking about. So a threat actor can use a tool called SiteSucker. He sucks down the whole page, rebuilds it, populates it with littler.com, but notice it's 2 L's instead of 2 T's. And then what he also does is he photoshops the logo in the upper left-hand corner to give you the sense of safety and security and that this is the way the company operates. Once again, everything on here is probably going to be the same, except when you do one thing. And that is when you actually try to log into this Evil Twin website, they're going to give you a site and they're going to have you put your username and your password in. And that's how the threat actors work. If you were to notice that 2 L's instead of 2 T's and you would have Googled it, you would have probably find out that, wait, well, these guys, this is a nefarious site. This is hostile. So at that point, you would have not given up your username and your password. The minute you give up a username and a password to a threat actor, he has the skills and the abilities to use your username across the internet and find almost every place that you log into. And they're going to try that password every place you log into. And if it's not using 2-factor or multi-factor authentication, they're going to burn you. And they're going to log in. They're going to change your password to something different, and they're going to lock you out. And that's when your life becomes miserable. And threat actors are really clever. In fact, what they'll do is they'll create even a webmail account, and they'll interact with you, and they'll say, well, geez, you're having a problem, blah, blah, blah. The chat session that comes up in the upper right-hand or bottom right-hand corner of a web page, they'll actually interact with you as well. But you got to remember, they're going to want to really get that password and that credential. So they're going to interact with you pretty harsh, and they're going to be very, very, very driven to get it because they know that it's a foothold into a site and it's a foothold into your life. So you've really got to really be careful about this. Here's a malicious twin site as well. All right. Once again, attention to detail. I want you to look at something here closely. Pandemic hits, companies are concerned about folding. The Small Business Administration, the US government, our shining knight comes to our defenses and says, we're going to give you some money. People are scrambling to go to the SBA site. SBA site's just jamming with people, but other pages are coming up and people are going, here's another SBA site you can go to apply for your loan. Now, if you look closely, all right, they want you to put your username and password in. But if you look at the URL, once again, attention to detail. This goes to https://leanproconsulting.com.br. Always follow the dots from left to right. That .com.br, that's the real domain. .com and .br, it's the .br that gives it up. That's Brazil. I'm pretty sure the Small Business Administration of our government isn't located in Brazil. And that's what this threat actor did. He actually took control of a web page at this company in Brazil. And now what he's doing is he's posing as a Small Business Administration to get your username and password. You got to read the fine print. You have to. So we talked about social engineering. This is king, spear phishing. I said cracking a firewall, it's really hard. But if you want to break into a network and if you want to ruin a person's day, phish them. Phishing is the #1 attack vector. And I want you to focus on something. And like I said earlier, I want you to slow down, but I want you to look at things differently. And I want you to look at an email. And when you see a mail message come in, before you click anything, before you hit reply, I want you to do the first thing and look at who's sending it. If you've had communication with somebody in the past, I want you to notice their name. And I want you to notice how it was laid out from the before and the after. So if it was Joe at acme.com, I want you to look at the previous email. And if it came from Joe at acme.com and it's spelled acme.com, then that's good. But if this message is coming from Joe at acne.com and he moves the M to an N, that's a trick. And that's how they're going to get you. At that point, you're interacting with a threat actor. The other thing, the attachment, don't open it right away. It's the last thing you want to do. Examine the email. The attachment is like the old school hack that threat actors would send out there. But once again, they can embed malware in anything. So PDF files, JPEGs, WAV files, you think it's just a music file. How bad can it be? No, bad news for you. They can embed it. Once again, you've got to look at things slowly. Salutation, dear user. Let's say in the past, when you were conversing with Joe at Acme, he would call you by your first name, and all of a sudden he's approaching you with dear, or he's using some other, odd way of communicating, or it doesn't lay out like the past communication. Just pick up on it, make it a red flag, but look at it closely. Threat actors will sometimes send this stuff out in masses. So once again, They'll just tag dear inside of there, or your last name, not understanding your first name. Very interesting how these guys operate. Sometimes they're a lot more, I guess they're very attentive to how previous emails were going through, specifically when they're doing some other types of things that are nefarious, but really focus on what they've done there. When they threaten you, like with Tony's scenario there about the truck coming out right away, you got to pay right away, that's a knee-jerk reaction. They're doing that to create you to do something quickly. Slow down. Once again, they threaten me. Once again, I shut down. I'm not going to do it. And when they tell me to like click on a link and they should instruct me to do something, definitely not going to do it. But here's the giveaway. If you go to the hyperlink and you see something attached as a link inside there, hover over it without clicking on it. But when it goes from the blue hypertext that you're seeing there to some other gobbledygook text that ends in .br for Brazil, or China for .cn, or RU for Russia, or .su for Soviet Union, you know that there's something bad behind that email. This happens, once again, you know what? Throw it away, delete it. These are all tells, and you don't want to be victimized. So if you get an email like that, something else can happen, and it's called pretexting. It's also known as phishing. So this is another trait that the threat actors are using. They'll send you an email message, and there's enough intelligence about individuals out there, plus their mobile phone numbers, they'll call you. And they may say something like, hey, we sent you that email. How come you didn't open it up or click on the link and register? Well, at that point, you're being phished. You're being used, and social engineered is really the term behind it. So really, when somebody starts asking you about something or telling you to do something, you know what? Be very cautious. And the one thing I can tell you to do is start listening. Don't acknowledge anything. And once again, if you're really on the fence and you don't think, well, geez, it could be real. I didn't turn those plates in on that car. It could be the Department of Motor Vehicles, or, I haven't filed a return for a few years. It could be the IRS. Haven't put it in writing. They contacted you. And if they say, well, what's your address? Say, you called me, you should have that. So the last thing you ever want to do is give these folks anything. And if they're having you interact with your computer, it's a giveaway. I'm telling you right now. Your mobile phone number and your mobile phone has become a very focused vector from the threat actors out there. I'm telling you right now, a few years ago, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, some of these bigger carriers, they got compromised and millions of mobile phone numbers were given up. When they start dialing for dollars, never discuss anything, just hang up. Don't tell them anything. And if you start getting calls from Microsoft or Apple, and they're telling you that they saw some problem with your computer, your tablet, your iPhone, I'm telling you right now, those guys will never call you. If you've ever tried to call Microsoft or Apple, it's one of the most miserable experiences you'll go through. Don't ever think they're just hanging around looking to help you, because that's unrealistic. It just doesn't happen. And people they're victimized by this all the time. So once again, just listen, don't discuss anything, and just hang up. Now, here's the other big problem. With all those companies that lost millions of mobile phone numbers, SMS phishing, or smishing now, is the way they're getting people. And it's a problem. So you're a threat actor living in Belarus. That's a country that's tied to Russia. They're pals. So what they've done over there's a lot of hackers that have taken millions of mobile phone numbers in the US. They load them up into a dialer. And that dialer then pushes them through in mass from a text message standpoint called SMS. They can send millions of text messages through our country, and they'll come into your phone, and you'll see this message come in, and it'll be like, hey, Jim, how come you haven't responded to this message? Or, hey, Tony, why didn't you pay that utility bill? Would you please reply so that we can, once again, get this resolved? And they may have an emoji in there or something. I'm telling you right now, when that comes in and you know who it's from, the worst thing you can do is reply. You never reply. You see, when you reply, you've acknowledged to the threat actor the number is good. Don't let curiosity get you, because when you reply, you're going to be getting more and more. There's going to be a check mark next to your number, and soon you're going to get a bunch more. And the threat actors are going to they're going to up their game to get more sophisticated types of phishing scenarios through your phone. Delete or block the caller, swipe to the left, get rid of it. You know what? Put a bullet in it. It's the worst thing you can do to deal with. Now, with phishing, remember this, your phone is a computer. It's just like your desktop. And if you get an email or once again your computer and you click on a link, it could be devastating. Well, if you get a link that's in a text message and you click on it, chances are it'll go to a browser on your phone. And if you think you just, you're logging into Walmart or whatever, or you're going into some other, trusted vendor, you might not be. And when you put your credentials in, I can assure you, if you're thinking you go to Walmart, they're going to take that username and password. They're going to log into the Walmart site for you. And then what they're going to do is they're going to change your password to the site. Then they're going to shop on your nickel. And then they're going to go to every other place that you probably use that password. And you're going to start burning you for every place that you have an account. So once again, when you get something in from a text message, really be suspicious. Look at it. You know what? Typically when something like this happens, you know what? If you're not sure, call them. Call the actual company. Don't use the one that's in the text message. Call the number. Do what Tony did and call the utility company through the 800 line, and you'll find out if you're being phished. Never click on that link. I'm going to tell you why it's so important too not to click on the link. This is a website. It's a dark website off the dark markets that are down in the dark web. So this site's a site where you can buy crimeware kits. They're actually making a mobile bank exploit. So here's how the scam goes. As a threat actor, you could actually buy this exploit off a dark market, and I think it's like super cheap. But you can then take this and then text millions of people. And then what you do is you tell them in the text message, "Dear Bank of America customer, we've just updated our Bank of America mobile app. I need you to update it to protect yourself because of some security flaws." And the threat actor then wants you to click the little side button on your phone and then install the app. And then at this point, you're going to then be required to put your username, your password in, and the account information. Unfortunately, you're not going to give it to Bank of America. You're giving it to the Bank of Moscow. And now some Russian threat actor is going to be banking on your behalf. And that's when your life becomes difficult. It's not just Bank of America. In the dark markets that I've seen in the dark web, you can buy all sorts of different exploits for different regional banks, credit unions. They don't care. They know money's green and they'll take advantage of everybody. If you get a new mobile exploit or if you get a new mobile app, all right, I would really go and make sure it's happening through the App Store, for example, at Apple, or it's going to get through like Google Play or somebody, or for that matter, go right to the web page of the bank you're working with and validate it that way. Because these guys have figured out mobile phones, they're hot and they're a good vector to take somebody down. So smishing and vishing, it's a big deal. Never reply, never click on the link, delete or block the caller. Once again, it's another form of phishing. You've really got to focus on that. Update and manage your phone just like you do a computer. The updates are coming into that thing to protect it as well. All right, here's another vector I want you to be prepared, because once again, with COVID, we started doing things through meeting invites, and everybody's doing things through like Zoom or Teams or Ring Central or Citrix. So you've really got to be conscious of this. Malicious meeting invites. This is how this works. And I'm going to pick on Zoom, but every one of them is all vulnerable. Go to a meeting by Log Me In or Zoom or Cisco WebEx Teams. Every one of them has been focused on by threat actors. And since we're relying on ways of communicating through video conferencing, an invite is a great way to hook somebody and get them to click on something and poison their computer. So how does this work? All right, here's a meeting invite from Zoom, right? Looks like Zoom. Got the Zoom logo. It says video conferencing. Looks okay. Except the problem is it comes from raja.rr. We tracked it down. It originates in Germany. All right. For some reason, why is that from something other than Zoom? That should be going through your head. Now, here's the other telltale giveaway. When you hover over the hyperlink where it says review invitation and it goes to lightcityceramic.com and also much of other stuff, that's got nothing to do with Zoom whatsoever. You see, Zoom is going to be the proxy. They're the ones that are going to hand out the invites, and it's going to come from them. And those domains that belong to Zoom won't have anything to do with Light City Ceramic. You see, the tell for this is going to be the domain. Well, so if it's Zoom, Zoom only has 3 domains: zoom.us.com and .zoom.com.ch. But by the way, CH, it stands for Confederate Helvetica, not China. See, that's in Switzerland. But these are the places Zoom does business predominantly, and obviously those are the domains they own. If you get a Zoom invite from anything other like zoom.ru for Russia or .cn for China or .br for Brazil or some other country that has a different domain name, you're about to go through something really bad. Microsoft, Citrix, Cisco, they all have domains tied to video conferencing. You can Google them, get the approved list. You can do it on the fly and check, but just don't click on the link, because I'm telling you right now, these guys have figured out every trick in the book. Social media. If you guys are doing things in social media, proceed cautiously. Social media, the minute you post data on the internet, it's gone forever. And I've seen people think that, well, I just deleted it or I took it down. Yeah, well, 20 other people screenshotted it and did this with it and wrote an article or blogged about it. So you got to remember, the minute you put something up there, it could be dooming for you. It could be really a problem. And once again, finding stuff like that, has become really easy. It's not hard at all. So you make a mistake, you put it up there, and if you don't take it down quick enough, and I'm talking within seconds, chances are somebody else will capture it. So finding personal data. So everybody thinks, well, how much personal data can be out there on social networking and social media? Well, get a load of this. There's about 1,000 plus social networking and media sites that are out there. There's over 500 million blog sites. So there's a ton of content. So once again, it's just not Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram. There is social media sites for everything. The minute you post content or put it up there, you got to think twice. And the content that you put up there is very, once again, it can be incredibly sensitive or damning. At the time, you might be in a rage or you're upset or whatever. Really think about putting it up there, because you can't take it back. I'm telling you right now, see it all the time. And if it's sensitive information and it ties back to, let's say, a child or to your business, to your personal life, and somebody can use it for some sort of really, nefarious means, they will. So there's plenty of it out there. So once again, really think about what you're about to post and put out there. Now, I'll tell you why it's so damning. Because if you put something out there and somebody says, well, how will they ever find it? Here's a data mining tool called Maltego. And if I can put a Facebook page in from an individual, I can crawl the internet with this tool and find every other site that you've touched, the digital relationships you have, and threat actors have this tool as well. So they have the capability, and every place that you've gone or posted that content or put that, or if you want to look and find it, or somebody else that's actually posted it for you or reposted it, tools like this exist. Think twice about what you put out there. If it's going to be something, once again, with a negative slant, and don't think, by the way, if you create an alias and you think you can hide behind some digital wall, bad news for you. That can be figured out as well. And if you get another email and tie it back to another email and tie it back to another one, that's not good enough either. So you know what? When you say something and use your digital soapbox, think of the consequences before you put it up there. The other thing, really think about what you post on the internet. And once again, like I said, removing content is almost impossible. And a great example of posted content are pictures and images. And when you post an image, and if it belongs to your school or your childcare facility or your personal life, before you actually hit that upload button, I need you to think about, will this ever come back to bite me? Because it can. Here's a great example of it. You see this picture here? This is a picture. It's from a company called Bin Shot. It's a firearms company, and it was a very innocent thing that they did. They posted pictures of all their employees. As a thank you, they gave them a firearm at the end of the year. They said, you know what? These are the folks that made our business successful. We're giving them all guns. It's a nice gesture. If you're a gun person, that's a great gift, right? The problem is when they posted on the webpage, they didn't think that it would have some negative consequences. Well, here's what happens. There's tools like TinEye or Google reverse image search or Bing image search. Well, with TinEye, if you put that image in or the URL of the image, you'll find every place that that's been posted. And unfortunately, when they put that picture up, there's some people out there that clearly have a problem with guns. And when they did that, 143 results comes back with TinEye. So there's people in that picture, and now we know their name, we know their address, we know their phone number. We also know the place where they work and obviously their job there. And now we also know that, there's some other details about their life, their social media. There's folks that are on the internet that have way too much time on their hands. So when you post that image, you really have to think about the consequences. Could this come back and bite me? And other personal details that we didn't even think about might be figured out by that. They may take that individual, locate a social security number, then out that individual. That's something Anonymous would do or some other hacktivist group. So you've really got to focus on what you put out there. Once again, innocent, incredibly innocent. They said thank you, and it came back and it bit them. So really think about the picture you're taking, and then really think about what happens when it leaves your phone or your camera or whatever you're going to use to, once again, capture that image. All right, some more popular hacks. We've talked about a lot of things, once again, that are happening, but these are some really things that you got to be worried about. This is the thing that happens in the news every day, and it's ransomware. And ransomware is the problem that occurs, small, medium, and large companies get hit, but it's a devastating thing. For me and for my guys that see what happens, it is probably the worst day of your business career. When you get ransomed and you get encrypted and your business shuts down, it is terrible. I've heard CEOs, CFOs cry. I've heard them weep on the phone. I've heard the terror in their voice, and it affects everybody. And don't think it'll affect just him as the executive officer or the leadership. It affects you as an employee. Because when your company gets ransomed and everything shuts down, chances are payroll's not going out, your benefits stop. Other things that make that operation run cease to exist. And ransomware makes it happen. That's the problem. The threat actors know it works. And I'm explaining to you the simplest of simple and how ransomware works. So this little block building on the left, that's your business. The cloud on the right, that's the internet. And you've got your firewall. You've got an antivirus program running. And you basically done everything right, you thought. But if a user makes a mistake, clicks on a link, or goes off to a website, and it, by accident, does something where now a piece of malware is installed on their machine that's tied to a piece of ransomware, at that point, typically what the threat actor will do is he'll encrypt the contents of your computer. What does that mean? When they encrypt the contents of your computer, that machine right there, all the files really don't run anymore. Your Word files, your spreadsheets, your PowerPoints, your music files you can't listen to, your video files don't play, nothing works. There will be a file that will open, and it'll be a ransom note, and it'll say pay me, and they'll want a ransom note for, let's say, whatever, a Bitcoin or half a Bitcoin. Early on, it wasn't a lot of money. Threat actors learn that if they lock up all the servers and encrypt them all, the business shuts down to a screech, and that's done. Then they've learned that people can recover from backups. Well, I can recover from a backup and I'm back up and running. Well, hey, that's great. But then threat actors learn that if they find your backups, whether you put them on the same network, you put them on a thumb drive that's attached to the computer at the time, or let's say a USB drive that's attached to a computer, they'll encrypt that too. Now you can't recover. So threat actors learned all the tricks. And that's when the ransom goes from $300 to $3,000 to $3 million. And they say, pay me. And that's the problem. And people, they obviously have to pay them to get out of hot water. And they've learned that it's a big moneymaker. Threat actors give out really sophisticated capabilities. And now they've learned that the longer they stay in your network, I'm not going to go into these details, the more money they can make. So when they're in your computer network, they're going to touch a computer ever so gently. They'll go away. They'll touch another machine in that network, and then they'll touch another one. They're doing reconnaissance. They're looking for everything they can find. And at that point, let's say you have a long weekend, they pull the trigger, now they encrypt everything, and they start moving your data. And at that point, that's when the problem starts. And you know what? They're going to stay in for a long time. We see them in there for, let's say, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, maybe even over a year. But they stay in there like they're an employee of your company, and they know how to work slow and low and hide. And that's why they're successful. The longer they're in, the more damage they can do. They've learned to stay inside that network and evade any sort of detection. So once again, pay attention to things. You don't want to get hit with this type of malware and go through this scenario. Here's a typical ransom note. This is fresh from the IR team that works in my company. And once again, you'll get a note like this. They said, your network has been breached. All of your data is encrypted. Personal data, financial reports, important documents, ready to disclose. I'll talk about that later. So then what they do is they give you a link and they'll say, okay, this is the link where I want you to go on the dark web. I want you to log in with this username and this password. And they're going to know exactly who you are. And at that point, if you go into there, you're going to, once again, you'll see the demands of what they want, the ransom. You're going to see what they took as well. And the problem is the minute you log in, the clock starts ticking. You may have 72 hours, you may have 48 hours to pay the money. And if you don't pay the money, they go away. And they've got guidelines. Guidelines at the bottom of that note, they're going to tell you, don't try to mess with the data. Don't reinstall stuff. Don't try to decrypt stuff, because if it's broken and it doesn't run, we can't help you. Just pay for the ransom of the decryption key. You see, they're going to make you pay for a key to get your data back, but they've also upped their game. They've probably taken your data as well. See, they'll exfiltrate it. And when they exfiltrate it, you're going to get a second ransom for that. So they don't go away. They want to hit you from every possible angle. So they all ransom data. This is a group called CLOP out there. This is the actual dark web page. CLOP is out there. They've hit everything from big petroleum companies to small law firms, to really small businesses. Here's an example of all the victims. They love to show you the victims because they tie back data of what they took to create that pain to get somebody to pay the ransom. Proof of exfiltration. They're going to show you the user's information. They're going to show you anything they can have to out you. Personal information from your, let's say, the children that go to your school, they're going to show you that. HR data, personal information, medical data, whatever they can do to show you this is the real deal. This is exactly the tactic used in kidnapping for proof of life. If you've ever seen a movie where they, kidnap somebody, cut an ear off and put a finger in a box, this is kind of the same reaction. This is what they're looking for. They mean business is what they're showing you. Then if you got to pay them, they don't want MasterCard. They don't want Visa. They don't want a check. They don't even want cash. They want crypto. And crypto is what's getting paid easy for a threat actor. And Bitcoin, that was what they wanted, pseudo-anonymous. And they know that once they get paid with crypto, they can then cash out in the country of origin where they're at and probably go unnoticed. And when we learned how to track them across the blockchain with Bitcoin, they changed over to another variant, which is called Monero. It's another cryptocurrency. Problem with Monero is there's no way to track them. Once you pay them, the money trail's lost. There's no way of even seeing whatever happens on the blockchain. So it's a perfect storm. They've got great tools. They know what to do. They know how to break into a network. They know how to focus on users. That's why you paying attention to things and looking at things closely are very important. This is another thing I want you to understand for your business. And I've seen this hurt so many people. And when they get hurt, it's almost impossible to recover from. It's redirected payment. And it can happen to you as an individual as well as at your business. But when people get hit with this, it hits hard. And this is how this works. Redirected payment is a simple scam, but it's the function of you losing control of your email. And if a threat actor gets into your email, your life will change in a miserable way. So here's the scenario. You're company A, and then company B is somebody you've done business with, okay? So all of a sudden, via these two companies, a discussion occurs via email and money is discussed, a payment. Now, company B, that's the payer. That's the one who's going to pay. Company A is the payee. They're the receiving funds of the payer. So now what happens is our threat actor is typically going to go after the payee. They want to inject themselves into the conversation. And if you're about to accept payment from somebody and you're company A, that threat actor will at some point push you out of the communication. This is how it happens. They're going to gain access to your email, or they already have because they saw the communication about payment. And then they're going to create a forwarding rule. So now you're not going to get any more email from company B. You know what? The threat actor is going to get the email from company B. And now our threat actor is going to pretend they're you. And then what they're going to do is they're going to send company B your invoice, but they're going to say something different. And they're going to say, geez, I know the invoice went out, but I need you to do something different. We've changed banks. Here's the new bank account number. Here's the new account number with the routing number. And I want you to pay this institution instead of the previous one. Sorry for the inconvenience. And then company B is going to send a wire off to our threat actor and he gets paid. And you're going to be wondering how come company B never paid you. And that's what happens. And now the threat actor uses a US bank account called a drop account. He uses the identity of a dead person to create that US bank account. He logs into it, and then he moves it off to another drop account in a foreign country, and the money's gone. And this has happened to so many companies and individuals over COVID. It's almost frightening. So what happens now is, like, when you think about it, you're going to buy a new house and your attorney thinks that, well, I'm going to pay the seller and the transaction's about to go through. Well, the threat actor injects himself as the other attorney, and then your life savings gets sent to some guy in some other country, and the other attorney wonders why you haven't sent the money. And that's what's happening. You know what? When you do things like this and there's substantial amounts of money, call the other individual. Tell them, you know what, this is the proper place to send it. This is who I am. Don't let them, once again, have them validate it too. If you have to go old school and send a check, do it. It's worth it. Threat actors have realized that this is far too lucrative to give up, and people just don't seem to believe it until they get hit. Doesn't matter. Sophistication. Companies that are really, really smart, accounts payables, receivables people, they get hit. I've seen lawyers get hit. I've seen other professional industries get hit. But once again, it really hurts when it goes down to the consumer.
Hey, Steve,
So, yes, sir.
we need to probably collapse. This has been amazing information. And honestly, I'm at the edge of the seat, but we do have to collapse the remainder of this. We're about 15 minutes over our time right now. So
that's it. Some quick security tips: slow down, read the fine print. Okay. Another thing, hover over the links without question. Reply text messages, don't reply to the ones you don't know without question, and never talk to the scammer without question. Don't think that you're going to be cute and get something going. You're just poking a bear. The other thing, no more passwords, passphrases. And you better not be using the same passphrase over and over and over again. That's just a rookie move. You're going to get caught. Multi-factor, if you can use it on your phone and Google gives it to you, and the other players that provide, email in the personal world, you can enable it to have a verification with a text message. Separation of credentials. The stuff at home and work, different. They have to be. If you get compromised at work, you don't want it flowing into your personal life. Last but not least, think about what you post and use encryption for any data and rest. And what I mean is any personal information, child stuff, anything related to your business that's sensitive, make sure it's encrypted properly. There's tools for that. And when you send information that's sensitive, make sure it's encrypted as well. That's data in motion. With that, Tony, we're done. I got to take some questions. I'm sorry we're over. Once again, a lot of content here.
At all. I want to thank you greatly, Steve. This has been, at the least eye-opening. It has definitely been a substantial presentation in really starting to discuss and really opening the discussion of all the possible challenges and vulnerabilities and risks that we have that we need to be proactive on. There's a number of different topics, and maybe we'll look to have you come back in the future, Steve, because there are elements out there where we're dealing with insurance companies who are talking to us every year, and they're starting to come more and more of they started with, do you want cyber attack insurance? And now they're even saying, well, the price of it's almost too high, you can't have it. So it is sort of moving at an extremely fast pace. You're on top of an industry there that I think is going to be, unfortunately, booming for a long while. How, if someone saw an opportunity to leverage security network technologies, that was in the audience today, what might be the best way to, we can obviously, if they talk to us, we can refer them to you, but where can you possibly help out the most?
They go to our webpage, they send us an email, we'll communicate right back. Jim Ockenen's on the phone, we'll monitor that. We'll get back to you right away. But if you have any questions, whatever, once again, Tony, you can forward them to us or you can send them directly. But there's a lot of people that, once again, they won't speak up in chat, but if a question comes up, we'll always answer it.
Great. So we are going to, again, we'll have this ready to go out for replay. We highly recommend this is something that you can use with your entire staff. As you can see, it would really be beneficial to your entire staff. And I think Steve did an amazing job of going over this information. Steve, I want to greatly thank you for taking the time today, you as well as Jim, who's in the background here, for bringing this to our attention. And we do want to make sure that we do some follow-up. So I'm going to probably have Sarah within our marketing team maybe work with you a little bit so we can do some follow-up emails to make sure that people have the kind of information to get a hold of you folks, as well as just learn more about this. So thank you so much from everybody at Inspire Care 360. This is Tony D'Agostino, and I'd like to thank you for joining our pop-up webinar series. We will see you again in the near future. We have our next presentation on April 13th at 1:30, how to slow the revolving door of ECE staff turnover. We hope to see you there. Thank you everybody for joining us. Have a wonderful day. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.